Presentation focuses on my research project attached to the Sustainable Prospects module, the second of this MA, how the module has developed and how it has affected my practice, both now and moving forward. From the outset of this course, my plan has always been to take advantage of the first few modules to experiment, essentially resetting at the beginning of each term, launching new projects. Provisionally titled Anchoring Ground, my project subject is the Tevil Stream, a waterway which runs now largely underground the town of Worthing in West Sussex. Much reduced in size, its use dates back to the Bronze Age and has been redirected and culverted many times, yet occasionally raises its head in and around the edges of the town. Although unsure of my specific goal and intentions, I did want to examine these places as they now exist, so began researching Worthing's history and the stream's path. This resulted in unearthing maps of the area spanning centuries, including a beautiful example from the late 18th century, which I felt I had to incorporate into the work in some way. Alongside these steps, I started to look at the work of other practitioners whose works, on a physical and immediate level, dealt with similar subjects. Jem Southam's The Red River resonated in particular, focusing as it does on an unassuming stream in Cornwall and looking at the communities it passes through, the varying uses of this land, such as mining and tourism, as well as the myths attached to it. On his approach, Southam said, "My work is more to do with what is in our minds than it is with a physical setting." This statement certainly made an immediate impact. However, it didn't truly hit home until my shooting had commenced. A tidal waterway, Tevil Stream and its surrounding land has been moulded by man over the years. From providing the home of a 13th century harbour, through to reclaimed land being transformed into Victorian-era ornamental ponds or mid-20th century pleasure boating lakes, all now lost or regenerated once more. Having traced the stream's route, it was while out in the field and shooting which ultimately gave my project a definite direction. With the mist-laden, low and neutral skies of my first proper shoot supplying the locations with a stage for contemplation, it delivered several powerful moments of immersion and isolation, crystallising my thoughts and bringing to mind those words of Southam. To me, these feelings also tapped into Liz Wells' observations on the work of French philosopher Gaston Bachelard. In her book, Land Matters, Wells references topophilia, a term coined by Bachelard which stems from the comfort we derive from familiar spaces or images of them. His starting point is the human imaginary, she says, and that which cannot be cast in terms of logic, words, or explanation, but which induces depth of sensory response to the extent that an image or feeling resonates and haunts. This is both the crux and complication of my project. How to evoke that emotion and sense of atmosphere when it is such a subjective and possibly unique response. Julietta Verdon Rowe is another photographer I've been introduced to and with who I found a particular connection. Although I had already shot a good number of images, the pictures she created for Scotland, England have a character and look which, to a large extent, I was trying to capture. Taken during the Scottish independence referendum in 2014 and looking at national identity, they possess an elusive feel and an intense notion of history, of a story beyond the frame and behind the photograph. My intention with this project has been to avoid the literal and exclude views of the stream, as well as eschewing then and now imagery. Between them, Southam and Verdon Rowe gave me the confidence to open myself up to more metaphorical meanings of what the stream and its surrounding spaces stand for today, and to tap into that strong sense of absorption in the land. However, what has felt like the greatest sort of inspiration and moment of genuine excitement was coming across the Irish philosopher, writer, thinker John Moriarty when he was discussed on BBC Radio. Moriarty wrote and contemplated a great deal on our interaction and relationship with the land, or indeed Earth as a whole. He once said, "I don't just think about those mountains and those hills, I think with them. You sit among them and you're thinking with them and dreaming with them, and they are dreaming with you. And I don't think that's fantasy. You're actually dreaming their dream with them. You're in some kind of dream time with them." I feel this encapsulates the potential strength of our spiritual relationship with the spaces around us. A further strand of his thinking is that the root of our emotions, when in the landscape, come not from us, but the land itself. So, that unexpected sense of melancholy one might feel when simply walking down a street, or a burst of joy or happiness when strolling through a field, but which then subsides when you reach the other side, those emotions don't belong to us, but to the land. Perhaps vibrations, trace memories of events past, children playing, a moment of love and tenderness, or of people disappeared and last sightings. It was a seminal, energizing moment, and it's a train of thought I can subscribe to, elucidating that feeling of being utterly couched in the landscape far beyond merely having 2 feet on the ground. It breathed new life into the project. My motivation for this work was to take Moriarty's thoughts on us, our relationship with the land, and try to build on that, to adopt the notion of landscape trace memories, the land's past, the immersive, ethereal feel these places have, and capture that through imagery. However, there's a perpetual nagging doubt that I have not been across the board successful in transmitting this, compounded by the fact that the core of the project is so highly subjective. Unsurprisingly, there are varying degrees of success with the final images. Some are stronger, more impactful than others. I've attempted to progress my knowledge of how to present and sequence my work, taking inspiration from the format and look of that late 18th century map. Ultimately, I've pared back my initial efforts, believing that design and use of the map's colour and affected texture had not aged well, had gone too far, and lacked sophistication. I believe the redesign is more successful, although there is still significant scope for improvement. Therefore, acquiring the requisite skills and experience in this area is something that needs to be addressed. Nevertheless, I will undeniably benefit from the wrong turns I have made. With its historical slant, I believe this project possesses universal appeal and lends itself to both gallery exhibiting as well as publishing. Local galleries, libraries, and museums are a natural starting point. Yet, this historical angle is essentially a gateway into less overt subjects of what landscape and spaces mean to us. What they represent regards our relationship with it, as well as its own intangible power. This, I feel, broadens its potential audience and makes it suitable for editorial pickup, be that in more niche, historical, academic contexts or via national and international print. As to future practice, I intend to adhere to my original intentions and move on to a separate project in the next module. However, within that, I suspect this project will still certainly live on in some manner. I hope to extend myself once more and incorporate ceramics into my work. Perhaps this will go some way to satisfy my push to faithfully express the emotion of the landscape via a more physical, tangible medium. It's an extremely exciting prospect, although due to the unavoidable collaborative nature of any work, its direction will be decided to an extent by potential COVID restrictions. I am also hoping to experiment with sound in the future. It was briefly considered for this project, but arguably it lends itself more to my plans for ceramics. I believe that soundscapes or audio in some form could potentially enhance such work, adding another sensory layer. This also demands more attention and research, but it's something I'm thoroughly looking forward to, along with the accompanying inevitable failures and successes.